Hello,
Um,
Chris. Hello, people who are watching us. We are Chris Kiriakou and Daniel Bostan for the second installment with our fabulous friend Chris Kiriakou from Australia, the Sahaja yogi from 1981. I keep going like that. That's the second installment. We talk about his beginning in Sahaja yoga and the apex in a way of his Sahaj life, having realization from Shri Mataji in 1983, but also the other one helping establishing the music of joy.
so
Today
today,
we go further.
Dan, you mentioned that you kind of share times with Shamaji or experiences with Shamaji that I've had in that Sakara form, in personal form. So I'll talk about some of the what I would think more significant experiences with Shamaji in her Sakara form. So we were very fortunate in Australia that Shimataji came often. She came 81, 83, 85, 87, 89, 91, 95, 97, and then 2005, 2000. So we're very blessed. So we had, as yogis being established in Sahaja, we had those opportunities where, Shimataji would come, we'd do public programs, we'd do pujas, we'd have music nights, and we had a lot of occasions, informal and formal with Shimataji. So many yogis, around the world have had those similar experiences, and a lot of those occasions are recorded, and people can access those. So, a question many people have asked us is, what was it like to be with Shri in the perspective of her both as your guru and as your mother and as someone that we recognize as Sri Adi Shakti? And I'll share a couple of experiences. So, when I was fortunate to go early on, it was the India tours. And in those India tours, they're very intimate occasions where you're traveling for a month around India with Shimataji. And many occasions, you have every day you'd see her, either both formally through the public occasions, but also informally, where she would just have opportunities where she would just be with us, talk with us, and we have opportunities to engage with her as guru and as mother. And it was probably as a young Sahajagi, and many people may share that experience, as probably growing up in Sahajagi, it was the first time when we really had intense periods of times with Shrimataji. And, there are some special experiences, that we're privileged to have. I remember I was at probably the first tour that I went, which was 1983, 84. So it was the end of 83, leading into 84. And we were doing there were two tours in that stage. There was one tour started in November, December, and the second tour overlapped. It went December, January. So I was in the second tour. And we had over 4 or 5 weeks traveling through Maharashtra, giving programs in villages with Shrimataji. And it was very special for us because we got to spend a lot of time with Shrimataji, in her form. And one of the things that were privileged to do was we used to support the public programs in these villages. So we would go, we would attend, we're always privileged, we'd sit at the front, but we'd also play support roles. So the yogis those who were musicians would go on stage and sing and perform, and they had an attraction for the locals because here were Western people who'd imbibed Indian culture, and they could sing in Marathi and Sanskrit and Hindi and sing very well and pronounce very well. So it piqued people's attention about, how could these Westerners so naturally take on to this Indian culture? And Shimaji would always refer to it as, inside yoga would become universal people. See, these Western people from so-called rich countries, yet they appreciate and imbibe the values of Indian culture, the spiritual values. And that made a great imprint on, especially the rural Indians. And what generally happened at the end of the programs was Shimaji gave darshan as she would in the West. But in India, it could be quite different because the villagers or the Indians would see Shimaji in a much more pure form. They would see her as Jagadamba or as a goddess. And then when she asked for darshan, there'd be this rush of people. And I'm talking, like we talk in the West, great programs, where there's 100 people, 150 people. We were programs where there's 10,000 people, 5,000 people in a village. The whole village would come. And it'd be a very simple setup. It'd be a pendle, some bamboo, some fabric, a simple stage. So what the role that many of the Western men would do is we'd be given the role of security. So we all link arms and we go to the front of the stage, and then we have a gap where people could come in, in an ordered way. Otherwise, they'd all swamp the stage. So this was a fantastic job for us because we're linking arms 3 or 4 feet away from Shri Mataji, and we were letting the seekers in. But we would be there 1 hour, over an hour sometimes there, acting in that role of shepherds of the yogis. But the whole time our attention is on Shri Mataji, and her attention's on the seekers. But we just had this special time. We could see her love, her unlimited love. And it's often said, we saw so evident that the love of the goddess for her seekers was no less for the poor people in rural India than it was for people in Sydney, New York, and London. She had the same appreciation, the same love, and she gave her time equally to all those people. The only thing for Shri Mataji was that they were seekers after their self-realization, and she gave darshan. So there'd be thousands of people coming after the program. They didn't all get time to speak to her, but they'd come, they'd bow, and Shri Mataji would bless them. And she'd spent many hours giving her darshan to people. And there were occasions where it really felt like, the times of Christ when he was wandering through the Middle East, on his mission, and people were following him, and there was the Sermon on the Mount, and the people would gather to hear him speak. It felt like that. It had that feeling of biblical times, or the times from ancient India where the Devi was there and the people recognized her, and they'd all come, and we were privileged to be there and to witness it, and to witness the unlimited, all-expansing, tremendous love of the goddess for her creation. And there were times when, I remember there was a time when we had a program, it was at night, it was a village in Maharashtra, and Shri Mataji was having given the darshan, and at some point she paused, and then she looked up at the heavens, and the roof of the pendle was blowing up and down with this strong wind. And then Shri Mataji smiled and said, "Oh, this is the village where Hanuman's father, the god of the wind, comes from." And you see the wind that's blowing. She looked up at the heavens. And she said, "He's come tonight, and he's come here with all the deities to bless the program." And you're sitting in this place in India, thinking or feeling that how privileged are we? We're here in front of the goddess, and she's referring to both the physical, but also the spiritual. It's happening at a level that we can't perceive, yet we can feel. We can feel the magnitude of the moment, the importance of the time, and the fact that we were privileged to be there to bear witness to the goddess. So there were all these occasions where, we were doing these things. But then, there are other occasions. I can remember once we were sitting one morning, in our tents, or pendles, very rudimentary accommodation. That was one of the things that Shri Mataji commended us on in the West, saying, well, you're used to 5-star hotels and all that luxury, and here you're sleeping on the ground under a fabric roof, going to a latrine with a hole in the ground, and yet you're all in the spirit. You've moved beyond the comfort, and you're enjoying the comfort of the spirit. So one morning we're getting up, and we're all half asleep, and we're brushing our teeth and we're having a bath, and then we looked up, and the bungalow where Shri Mataji was staying, we couldn't believe our eyes. Shri Mataji was walking down the bungalow to our camp, and everyone could see that, and everyone's running around, getting out of their pajamas, and putting on their kurtas and trying to comb their hair. And Shri Mataji walked into the camp. We just pulled a chair up. Somebody threw a shawl on it, and then she sat on the chair, and then she said, everyone come, everyone comes. There's about maybe 150, 200 of us on the tour. So not a large number. We all came, and we all sat in front of Shri Mataji, and she would just be, there's different phases of the Devi. There's the goddess, there's the Jagadamba there. And when you go to puja, you feel the awe of those, those divine pujas and the form that you're worshipping her in. But there are other times when she could be quite informal. And this is one of those occasions when she was more in the aspect of the mother. And then she'd stare and she'd say, look, how's everyone? She'd look around, who's sick? Are you getting the right sort of food? Are you comfortable? She's very happy with the way the tour's going, and hey, no one's complaining and everyone's happy together. And then at one point, I remember this one occasion, she said, I want to ask you all a question. Tell me the reason why I bring you on India tour. And everyone, as you would anticipate, when you're first in the presence of Shri Mataji, you feel very shy. You feel, mentally who Shri Mataji is, that she's the goddess, and the goddess is speaking to you, and you feel shy because you don't want to say the wrong thing, or you don't want to, all that, you don't know, exactly what to say. But then she could perceive that, so she'd start to. She knew some people's names. She'd call their names out, and she'd ask one by one, "What do you think? What do you think?" And people were saying all sorts of things, such as, we come to learn the culture. We come to see the grandeur of what Sahaja can be in a global level, rather than small programs with a few hundred. We go into programs with 10,000. So we see Sahaja as a global movement. Some people were saying to clear out, to evolve. Other people were saying to progress spiritually. So she went through everybody, and everyone gave these fantastic answers. And she said, they're all right. All the things that you say are all things that happen on tour, but it's not the reason. And then she said, does anybody have any? So it ran out of answers, and she said, one of the key reasons I bring you is that you come from different races, different religions, different backgrounds, north, south, east, and west. And you come to India with all those conditionings that you bring from your backgrounds and from your past lives. But here, you're one family of Sahajogis. You're no longer Australians, you're no longer Americans, you're no longer English. You're Sahajogis. You're no longer black or white, rich or poor, high caste, lowborn. You're all together. And you experience the universality of manhood, of what it is to be a human being without all the barriers. So when you come to India, you not only learn it mentally, you experience what true collectivity is, where all the barriers, all the divisions, all the differences dissipate, and you connect with one another truly as brothers and sisters. And all the limitations and the divisions and the conditionings and the prejudices that you have can slowly be worked out or to be removed, and you can truly see yourself, as one. And we're all stunned, by the universality of what Shri Mataji was saying. At the same moment, there's a realization that what Shri Mataji just told us was so true, that we were all people from every country, every religion, every caste, every background, rich, poor, north, south, yet we were brothers and sisters, not in name, but in the way we were in reality. And that was things like that in the presence of Shri Mataji. You never forget those. You never, talking about it now, it's as real to me now as it was to me in 1983 in Maharashtra when I had the experience. And another time when we were in the tour, other times she said to us, we were in another venue, and she said, these experiences that you have, they're not memories. You have the experience and you go home and then you forget them, we remember them. She said, Sahaja operates slightly differently. She said, the times with me that where you're in the presence of the Devi and the goddess, she said, they are recorded in the Vaikuntha. So the Vaikuntha is like the divine realm. It's the physical realm. And the Vaikuntha is where all the deities and, all those divine events took place. And those events then reflect back into the physical reality that we live in. So she said that these occasions with me are recorded in the Vaikuntha, and they change the fabric of the universe. They change the reality that you can experience on the earth. And then she said later, when you go home and you dwell upon those experiences, she said, you're not remembering them. She said, their impression in the Vaikuntha flares back into life when your attention goes there in the right space, and you are reliving those experiences. They're not memorized. They're experiences that are still alive, present, imprinted in the Vaikuntha. And then when your attention goes to them, they reinvigorate. And that happens for all of us. The times that we're with Shri Mataji in Kabbalah, in our countries, wherever we are with her, those experiences are not just memories, they are written at that divine realm, and they can be relived, reinvigorated through the connection of our pure attention. And that's something that we all experience, that when we in that state where we're thoughtless, we're in the nirvichara, and maybe even the nirvikalpa state, and our attention goes to something that we experience with Shri Mataji, or even in her Nirakara form, that reality comes back into us in a real sense, not just a memory. It's a real invigoration and activation of our solar system. So that was some of the, the things. And many people who went on those tours from 1981, I think they started, and they went right through to the late 90s, will all say that that intense time with Shri Mataji in India were the making of them. And the first years we were doing tours of Maharashtra, and then we expanded. We started doing tours, in the north, and then we started doing these immense train trips from the south right through India and from the north, and they became on a grand scale. And the numbers started increasing. We started going from hundreds to many hundreds of people, but essentially they were the remaking of us from the people that we were prior to become more aligned with Sahaja. So that's when, through those early tours, all of us started to have more, personal, direct experiences where we had occasions, and sometimes those occasions we always look fondly back, as remember the pleasant times. But sometimes Shri Mataji, if she needed to be, could be very firm with us if we needed it at that time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the mother has to be, has to use the rod rather than the hug. So I remember one time when we were in a bungalow in that stage was Bordi. So it was before Ganapatapula. So before we went to Ganapatapula, there's a place called Bordi, which is near Nargol, which is where the Saraswara is open. So we're going there for a few years before we moved to Ganapatapula. And we're in a bungalow, and I won't take names, but there was an occasion where we were having some music, and there was a particular person who came in, and Shri Mataji saw the person, and then she wasn't happy with that particular person, and she started to correct the person, and she started to say that, I sent you to a particular country for a particular reason, and you didn't fulfill the reason that I sent you, and you got lost in your marriage and all the good things that happen, and you forgot, the reason I sent you there wasn't just to be happy, it was to move Sahaja forward in that country. And she was quite firm with the person, and we were all sitting there feeling a little bit uncomfortable, feeling sorry in a way for the person because they're getting this correction, but getting it in front of all of us, and you all feel a bit, in our hearts, we felt sorry. And then Shri Mataji stopped, and she sort of looked at us, and she could sense that we were all, feeling for the person. And then she stopped, she paused, and then she said, "It's enough for you." And then she said to all of us who were there, she said, "I do this from my compassion and out of my love." And she said, "Even when I'm hard with you, it's for your benevolence." And then she said, she gave me an example, an experience I'll never forget. She said, "Think about it this way, that imagine that you're all on this journey, you're on this road, and in the far distant future, distant horizon, the Himalayas are there. And you're all on this road. The road goes up and down, there are valleys and there are pitfalls and there are challenges, and sometimes your attention is on the stone that you just stepped in, or the hill you got to go up, or the valley you got to progress. And that's your journey through Sahaja, is that you have all these challenges and you have all these circumstances that you must deal with. And sometimes your attention becomes so focused on the immediate. But she said, always lift your head up and look to the horizon, the Himalayas, the vast expanse of that mountain range with innumerable peaks, whose majesty and magnanimity is so vast, it's beyond human understanding. She said, "That's me. That's who I am. I'm the Devi. I'm the insurmountable, uncountable grandeur of the Himalayas and beyond. And on this journey that you do with Sahajogis, is yes, you have the daily travails and the daily challenges, but always remember the attention on the Himalayas. And she said, and I'm your mother, and I love you. So I don't want you to be lonely on your journey towards me. So I give you a wife or a husband, or I give you an ashram with other yogis to enjoy the time with. So that when on your journey, you're not lonely and you have people to have companionship, fellowship with, to share the journey with, to help you along the way. And then she said, this particular person, that I had to correct today, what they did is on this journey, they went left and they sat in the cafe and they're having their coffee and their chai. And they forgot about what they were doing and they're absorbed in the joy of the moment with themselves. So I had to go in as a mother and pull them out of the cafe, give them a little smack and push them on the road again so that they remembered what is the purpose, why they're here, and what is it that they're doing. Never forget, I'm the Himalayas, I'm the far horizon, I am that which you seek. And yes, the journey is important, but the destination and keeping your attention on me as the destination is the most important thing.
I suppose this wasn't, like you said, wasn't a formal talk, wasn't recorded. So those are 83, 84, your first India tour. So you remember what she said is very important. I'm not sure if you transcript them somewhere, but will be here. Will be here as a recollection of you what Shri Mataji said, because your are not your words, are Shri Mataji's words. And for me it was fantastic because I feel it like she talked with me now when because I live without collectivity for many, many years. So only my wife and I, most of our Sahaj life will be in a kind of remote places. So probably that I feel it like she was talking with me.
You're right, because the recorded events were usually the pujas and the programs.
Yeah.
So that's when a microphone came and, they had the sound gear, and especially in those days, everything was portable. So you brought, they had a car battery as a power source, and they had a little recorder, and they had a little camera. Yeah. But most of the occasions on the tour weren't recorded. Those occasions, or everything I've spoken about, there was no microphone present. There was no amplification. She was just giving us, that darshan personally. And the fact that I'm relating it 40 years later, you can see the impact it had on me, because it was the Devi in her form as both mother, as guru, as guide, as avatar, all those roles in one, all expressed through her benevolence and her love. So it was transformative, because Shri Mataji was so, her benevolence and her love for us was so great that there was no limit to what she was prepared to do to help us day and night on these tours. And she made herself, accessible. And, we'd be traveling in these, what they call them, the red rattlers. So they were the local Maharashtrian, transport commission bus. So they were, a very basic form of transport with a wooden seat, no cushion, just a bit of green vinyl over the wood. Not much suspension, so you're bouncing along. And then Shri Mataji was in this ambassador car, with a few attendants, and she'd be driving along either in front or behind. And sometimes we'd stop somewhere for a break, and Shri Mataji would be having a cup of chai. It was unbelievable. And then, at night we'd get together and she would say, "What did you see today?" She always direct us to these sacred sites, whether they were the Ashtavinayakas, the Mahalakshmi temple in Kolhapur, the Ganesha temple in Ganapatipula. She would direct us to all these temples and these Swayambhus. And she would say, the reason I'm sending you there is because these are holy places, but they've been taken over by money-making, organized religion. So I want you to go there to reinvigorate them, to say the mantras, to say my mantras, and the deities will awaken again. And these places that we'll put there to help humanity through their vibrations can be purified and reinvigorated by your presence. So she said, don't think you're just traveling through India as tourists. Your attention on the land of Maharashtra, on all these sacred places, does a great effect. And they help to reinvigorate and re-revitalize these places. So we we had that in our attention always. So, she said, don't, chit chat on the bus like you're going on a holiday. If you're going to be in silence, have your attention on the spiritual aspects. And if you have to talk, then talk about matters Sahaj. So we had that, very much in our attention. So those were just some of the experiences from those tours. There are probably many more, but there are some of the ones. I'll just share one last one. So on one of the tours, in the end, when the tours were small, at the end of the tour, Shri Mataji would meet with each country group because there's only 50 or 60 people of us. So it was possible to meet with the Swiss and the French and the Australians, the English and the Americans, but before they returned to their country and speak to them as one group. So at this particular time, I think it was Bordy, we're all staying in these bungalows under the acacia trees, very similar to the way Nagal set up, right on the water. And Shri Mataji was staying in this bungalow on the peninsula headland. So we're all back in the trees, and it was about maybe 200 meters walking on the beach to where Shri Mataji was. So all the day, every country was waiting for the call. So one country would come, one country would come. Everyone was washed and dressed and hair oiled and wearing their best kurta and waiting for our call. And finally, right at the end of the day, it was like around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it was dusk, the sun was going down, and the word came, it's the Australians' turn. So we all came out, and the protocol was the ladies would all be dressed in their beautiful saris. They walk in front, and the men in their white kurtas behind. So usually the older in front and the younger behind. So we all started to walk and towards this headland where Shri Mataji was. And I just had this vision, like once we started walking, I looked in front of me, and there were all the ladies in their beautiful cotton saris, and the wind was blowing the saris, and the men were in their beautiful white kurtas with the white cap, walking up towards Shri Mataji. And I had this feeling like I've been waiting for this moment all my life. Like all my life, I had this sort of feeling, even before Sahaja, that something good was going to happen. I don't know what it was, where it was going to happen. But I had this anticipation that there was something really special going to happen in your life, and to be ready for it. I never knew what it was. I couldn't put a name to it. And then when I came out and we started walking, the thing flashed in my head. This is the moment you're waiting for. This is what you're anticipating. You're going to meet the Devi with your brothers and sisters, and you're going to have an audience with God. So be on your best behavior and make the most of it.
Yeah.
So we walked up, we sat in the bungalow. Shri Mataji was sitting by the window was open, the breeze was blowing in, her hair was moving in the wind, and she said, come in, sit down, my children. We all sat. And then she said, I'm very happy with you all. You've all done this month tour. You've been great help to me as we traveled through India. You're about to go back to your country. She said, when you go back, don't go back with any ego or any sense that you're somehow higher than the ones who couldn't afford to come. He said, this is not what being is about. It's not to get a sense of status or to feel that you're somehow better. It's all part of the working out of everybody, and you're an instrument of that. Like he said, go back with humility, but go back, take the vibrations that you've earned on this tour and spread them. They're not for you. They're for all the seekers, all the people. You're my channels. You're my instruments. And through you, you can do great work. But you have to go and spread it and share what you've got. And then she said, and she knew many of our names. She started going through the audience, all the yogis, and she took their name. What did you experience? What did you learn? What was your big takeout from the tour? And she's going through, and people were saying, beautiful things about, what they'd experienced and what they got from the tour, and the lessons that they learned, or the new techniques that they learned, or just being in her presence. So everyone was speaking very beautifully. And then she came to me and she said, Chris, what did you experience? What would you like to share? And I went very thoughtless, and I said, Shri Mataji, I don't really have much to say other than I now know, without a doubt, that you are my mother, that you are the goddess, that you love me, and that my life is committed to you. And then she smiled and she said, that's what I want. I love you. You know I love you. And to hear that you love me and that you're going to dedicate your life to Sahaja and to me, that makes me very happy. And, that was, again, 40 years ago. And I can still talking about it. I can still remember that young 25-year-old boy in his white kurta, looking down at the floor, unable to look up at the goddess and speaking because too shy, and hearing her say that I know you love me, I know you all love me, and I love you all back. And that's a very important message for all of us, is to know that the only reality in the world is the love of Shri Mataji for you and your love for her. That's the only thing that you can absolutely depend upon, no matter what happens in your life, no matter the trials and tribulations that you go through. It is the fundamental principle upon which Sahaja Yoga is, and your ascent and your self-realization is founded upon. So I'll just share another story. So came back to Australia, the course are happening, and then through circumstances, I started to become more involved in, we use the word leadership or responsibility or whatever that word is, but given more responsibility in my city. So there's one time we're sitting at Burwood. It was 1996. So the tour was on, and Burwood is we're very blessed to have this house where Shri Mataji, the story for Burwood was in 1981, all the yogis were living in their own houses, but the desire, everybody, was to leave their homes and come and live in an ashram together.
So Burwood is close to what bigger city?
Burwood's in Sydney.
It's close to Sydney. It's a
a suburb in Sydney. It's called the Inner West. It's about half an hour travel from the main part of the city. So it's quite central. It's a middle class, very nice suburb. And then most of the yogis were living in the areas around that suburb. So, in the surrounding suburbs. And Shri Mataji said, I want you all to live together. I want you to find an ashram and come together and live collectively. She said much more progress and advancement can happen, when you live together. So they started looking for an ashram, and they're having no luck. And Shri Mataji was about to come to Australia in a few weeks' time. And the leader at the time rang Shri Mataji and said, Shri Mataji, we've been looking, but we can't find anywhere big enough and suitable where we can all be together. We're trying to find a large house. And then Shri Mataji told the leader,
how many of you are?
There was about 40 who wanted to live together.
Yeah.
So Shri Mataji said, don't worry, my son, you'll find something tomorrow. It was a Friday. So Saturday was the big day when everyone goes out looking. So the next day they go looking, and then someone rings up and says, I found the place. So they all rushed to this 10 Clarence Street, Burwood. So what it was an old nursing home, right? And the nursing home had closed because, the legislation was changing and you had to have purpose-built facilities with all the right ramps and all the right facilities. And this was a large suburban house that had been converted into a nursing home. So the owners had wanted to rent it out, but it had lots of rooms and it was large. So the agent said, it's too big for most people to rent because there's like 8 bedrooms and a couple of bathrooms, but it was still set up as a nursing home. So they still had all the bedpans and all the hospital equipment. And the agent said, the owner doesn't want to spend any money renovating it. So if you take it, you got to take it as it is. And the yogi said, we have no problem taking it as it is, and we will renovate it at our own cost. And the agent said, are you mad? Like, no one renovates it at their own cost. They all want the owner to pay. And they said, no, we'll live together. We'll renovate it. We won't charge you anything, and we'll make it our own place. So we found the place. It was large, and to their word.
So you rent it initially.
We rented it from 1981. Started renting it, and then we started renovating it, and at our own cost. We weren't charging the owner. We started to make major renovations to the rented house because we wanted to use it. And then Shri Mataji came in 1981 and 1983 and 1985 and 1987 and so she kept coming. So each time she came, we're continually renovating. And eventually in 1987, the leader at the time, who was, he had some foresight, he said, why are we paying all this rent all over Sydney for rented places that goes out the door and we never see anything? He said, we are now responsible adults. It's time that we bought our own places and made them our own, rather than one day the agent or the owner says, sorry, I want the house, and you're all gone. So he came up with this proposal, said, I want to buy Burwood and turn it into a permanent place. And he said, great. The way we do it, he said, he wasn't even asked. He said, every yogi has to give, and this is 1987 days, $3,500. I did the calculation. $3,500 in 1987 days today is about $15,000. So you imagine the leader goes to everyone and says, I want you to give $15,000. And people said, I don't have the money. He said, it's all right. I've spoken to the bank. They'll loan you the money with whatever collateral that you have. And okay, it was a little bit over the top, but it was the difference between getting something and not getting something. And then eventually the money was raised, and we bought 10 Clarence Street as one of the first collectively purchased properties in the world.
Oh,
and when we told,
not only in Australia.
Yeah, in the world, because when the leader rang Shri Mataji and explained to him what we're doing, she said, this is unique. And he said, but there are other ashrams that have been bought around the world. And she said, yes, I bought them. My money, or CCP's money.
Especially in England.
Yeah, England and other places in India.
Yeah.
She said, I bought the land, or I bought them. She said, the first time the yogis have accepted responsibility, raised the money, and as adults, purchased their own center and put roots down into the earth as a permanent. She said, I'm very happy this has happened. And we then, so when she told us that, we said, okay, that's for whatever reason in Australia, and she once said buying land in Australia and turning it into ashrams is a way of permanently establishing the Sri Ganesha principle in the collective. So she said, in your country, permanently purchased owned centres rather than rented is important. So eventually where we are today, we have 8 centres that we own in each state. Over the years, we've followed that pattern and done the same thing. So I was then referring to, so we bought it in 1997, Shri Mataji's there at Burwood. And at that stage, the country has grown so much that the house was packed. There were people hanging from the chandeliers. There were so many people who come into Shri Mataji. They're all sitting with their knees up against our chin, every space for yogis. And then the leader at the time was Uncle Michael Fogarty, great, one of our best ever leaders. And I was one of the city coordinators for Sydney. There were a few of us who were helping him. And then Shri Mataji turned to Uncle Michael and she said, Uncle Michael, Burwood is beautiful, it's too small. You need to get something bigger so everybody can come and see me without being crammed in. And she said, and also this time, don't buy in the city, go to the country, maybe an hour from where Burwood is, somewhere we have space, it's away from all the noise, and where you can meditate and do yoga in peace and quiet. So she said, when I come next time, I want you to have a country property that's big enough for everyone to do puja. And she used these words, to see me with unobstructed. So Uncle Michael bowed and said, Shri Mataji. So Shri Mataji left, and then straight away, okay, we're going to buy a country property. So everybody went out, looking at properties and, looking north, south, east, west, and as people were, looking at, things that are like gone to the wind, sort of sprawling lawns and, country manors and, places in, turf farms. And so we put a portfolio together of all these properties, and I was with Uncle Michael at the time. I was looking at these properties and I said, Uncle Michael, these are very beautiful, but they're very, very expensive. Yeah. So I said, how are we going to fund all this? He said, oh, it'll work out later. So I said, well, maybe we should have at least 1 or 2 properties at the back that are a low level, that are affordable, that we can afford. And so he said, all right. So we went and found a couple of properties that were, instead of in 1997, 1996, so rather than $1 million, which is a lot of money, it was more like $200,000, $300,000. So we had a portfolio. And then we went to India and we saw Shri Mataji, and then the time came for going through this portfolio. So Uncle Michael was going through all the, and Shri Mataji with Shri Mataji, all the properties. Shri Mataji would say, oh, very nice. It's turf farm and, this other one, a country manor and all these beautiful places. And then she asked the question, can you afford it? And at the time, Uncle Michael said, well, no, we can't afford it. And then she said, do you want me to buy this property for you? And he said, no, we don't want you to, we're not asking you to buy it. We're adults now. We will buy our own property. So then she asked the important question, which one can you afford to buy? And then he went to the back, and there was Balmoral. It was a blueberry farm. There was nothing on it. It had one machinery shed, tin, and a shack, and nothing else. And there was a farm that had blueberries on there, and there was some utility roads, maintenance roads that were lined with coal dust. And Uncle Michael said, it's not very attractive, Shri Mataji, it's very basic. And she said, yes, but there's dignity in it because it's what you can afford. And then I think she could sense he was a little bit disappointed that they couldn't offer something more palatial to Shri Mataji. And she said, don't worry. She said, through your labour and through your love over the years, you will turn of it into something beautiful. And if you look at Balmoral today, that's what it is. It's become something grand and beautiful through our love and labour from 1997 to now. So over 20 years, slowly, it's being transformed from a very rustic, basic, blueberry farm into our country puja facility, which we love. And there was a great lesson. So then the reason I tell the story is I want to flip forward to 2007. So it's 10 years after, or 20 years after, 97 we bought it. So 2007, we're at Burr with Shri Mataji for Navratri Puja. And it was just like in 1996. Because Shri Mataji was there, everybody was at Burwood and people are hanging from the chandeliers. They're all packed in, knees up against the chin again. And we're having this program, and we wanted to give Shri Mataji, we wanted all the yogis, because we knew 2006 and 7, Shri Mataji wasn't speaking. We didn't know when Shri Mataji would come back to Australia, if ever. So we wanted to give everybody a chance to come. So we had a lot of opportunities, pujas and programs, and we did this rostering system where we'd say, on this night, the North comes. On this night, the South comes. On this week, Perth comes. On this week, Adelaide comes. So over that period, we scheduled it so everybody from the country at least had one occasion to get her darshan. And that was an intent that we wanted to share this last opportunity with everyone. So on this particular night in 2007, Shri Mataji could see everybody jammed in, and she turned to Uncle Michael and to me, who was sitting there, and she said, I thought I told you to go and buy country property. So she's referring back to 1996. And she remembered that she told us, and then here we were jammed back in Burwood. Yeah. And we said, no, Shri Mataji, you're pulling our ears. We have bought something. We had to Balmoral, but we had the program here because we didn't want to drive you, an hour away, and it's quite, a far distance away. And then she said, never underestimate my love for the collective. I will do anything for the collective. So don't think to spare me. If that's where the space is, I'll go there. So it just, to me, it showed how Shri Mataji knows everything. She remembers everything, and everything is connected. And that what we do is part of her grand plan, part of her grand design, for ordering of things, and everything, every direction that she gives us is, important and for a very important reason. So, and that place at Balmoral where we have is, so central to how Sahaja Yoga is conducted in Australia and in our state. It's much loved. We go there every month for our pujas, and people go there for gardening and to look after the property, and it's maintained and it's loved and nurtured and cared for. And you go there and you feel Shri Mataji strongly there as you feel her in Pakistan or Kabbalah or anywhere in the world. That's her place. Her place always has that essence of her presence there. Her Nirakara form is so strong there that you go there and you feel the awe and the presence of the divine. So that was that time. I mean, and then let me talk about other times. So I tell you a very important experience that happened with Shri Mataji. So it was now talking about 2005. So at that stage, I was the coordinator of the first Australian Council. So what had happened was that there was a time to change the leader at the time, and this was in 2005, and Shri Mataji wanted to change the leader. So I received a phone call and she said, "Chris, it's time to change, and I invite you to become the next Australian coordinator." And then I said, "Shri Mataji, I'm very honoured, and I'm very humbled by the request." But I said to Shri Mataji, given circumstances, what's happening around the world, perhaps it's now time to move away from an individual country leader and to go towards something that's collective. Because in the future, I said, when you're not here, who's going to remove, like you've just removed the leader, who's going to do that job? They're in for life. And if they become problematic, what mechanism can we have, to remove them? So I said, when you do a council, one, there's going to be a collective body, so there's less chance of the whole body going crazy. And we'll put a tenure, say 5 years. So every 5 years, whatever happens, the council will rotate. And then Shri Mataji said, well, it was relayed to me later through Sir CP, that she considered it, but then she thought, Sir said to me, what about the good councils? 5 years, you will get rid of them. And I said to Sir, yes, sir, but that's the price you pay for getting rid of bad councils. So yes, you will lose good councils, but having a 5 year period means you got a safety mechanism by which the bad councils can go. So
Just
then,
a question.
Yeah.
Just a question. That's happened in 2005, yes?
Yes.
According to your knowledge, this proposition of yours happened ever before in some other places, or you were more or less the first one, or was something in the air everywhere it's happened? This come from Shri Mataji or come from the Sahaja yogi?
I think there was I had heard of a informal council had been formed in another country, and it was like a city-based one. But as far as I know, it was the first national leadership council to replace the national leader. Because what Shri Mataji said, it was related to Shri Mataji. I think at that time she talked sometimes, doesn't talk sometimes, and it was discussions with Sir CP. And then the message came back to me through other channels that it had been discussed with Shri Mataji, and the message was, let's try it in Australia first. And if it works in Australia, then we can try it in other places. So the word was
starting from Muladhara.
Starting from Muladhara, we'll try it. So it was the first national council. It was suggested by us, by me, whatever, as when the offer was to be a national leader. I said, no, let's try the council. And then the council system went through. And in 2010, we went to Shri Mataji and said, the time for the first council for renewal has come, and we're going to rotate. And Sir at that time said, this is a great council. This has been fantastic. Went to Australia in 2006 and 2007. We could see on the ground how good things are going. He said, go for another term. He said, things are going so great, don't change it. And we said at the time, Sir, we have to rotate. If we don't rotate and we continue on, then in the future, other people will say the same thing, is that we're going really well and we won't rotate. Yeah. So as a result of those discussions and the renewal of that first Australian Council, the letter of 2010 came from Shri Mataji that said the principle of 3 to 5 year council is a good one, and it should be considered or adopted around the world. So 2010 letter where it was announced that the council system was something that should be tried in other countries. It was as a result of that first 5 years of Australia from 2005 to 10. And then the principle of replacing national leaders with councils was sent. Now, at the time, people don't know that, the senior yogis, around the world were against it. They said, oh, no, this is not Shri Mataji. This is Sir CP's letter. Shri Mataji didn't write the letter. This is all Sir CP's intervention in Sahaja. And this is like Chris and the Australians collaborating with Sir CP to bring about this change and They said, no, Shri Mataji set up leaders, untenured, and that's what we're going to maintain is Shri Mataji's system, not this intervention by Sir CP.
Just a question. This was the beginning of some sort of antagonism between some of the leadership from around the world. I don't want to point it or whatever. And Australia, because Australia was always a pain in the neck. Should I, if I may.
The background to that, and then you're right. This was part of it, but it wasn't the full story. And I don't really want to go into controversy. But what I will say is, there was a criticism. This is where the core of it started. So the criticism in around 2005 was the medical care of our mother. Now, Shri Mataji had written a letter in the late 80s where she said, I do not want medical intervention for myself, and it's suggested by my family. I don't approve of it. So that letter was present. Some people question the validity of the letter, but I don't. And I assume, yes, Shri Mataji did write that letter in the 80s about what she wanted. But now we come to 2005, and Shri Mataji had stopped speaking. She spoke less. I won't say she stopped speaking. She did speak. She didn't speak all the time, but she spoke. But more importantly, when you're in her presence, she made her intentions very clear. If she was not happy, you knew she was not happy, right? And she would fire people still at that stage. Yeah. So what happened in 2005 is her health was challenged. We all know that. Everyone can see the difference from 2003 to 2004. There was a massive change. Her health was impacted. Her well-being was impacted. So this great challenge came to all of us, and that was the care of our mother. Now, it's very clear that Sir CP, her husband, had 100% authority and rights in that situation to make determinations about what should be done for the care of his wife.
Yep.
He was legally, morally, spiritually, ethically, 100% responsible. We as Sahaja yogis, zero responsibility. But we have 100% care, attention, and focus on that matter. So what happened was Sir decided in 2004-05 that he would compile a group of medical professionals, nurses, doctors, carers, physiotherapists, cooks, and everything else to provide care for Shri Mataji. He wanted the yogis to do it. He could have hired professional people, non-yogis, to do it. He had the money, had the intent. His desire was to look after his wife. He could have got the world's best doctors, nurses, created a professional team to look after Shri Mataji. He didn't do that. He wanted the yogis to look after her because they loved her. And if they were doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, and everything else, all the better. Divine Sahaja medical care. So that was his intention, and he pulled this team together of doctors and nurses and carers. And we were then, what then happened was, and you're asking about what was the beginnings of the feelings against Australia. So if you look at what happened before 2004, you can see the videos of who was around Shri Mataji. They were mainly, the old powers of Europe who were there doing that job. And inshallah, Shri Mataji, no problem.
Yep.
But from 2004 on, when the change happened, all of a sudden those people weren't there, and we were there. The Australians, Hari, me, Kim, Dr. Ramesh, Dr. Bogdan, all those people, and other health professionals from all over the world were there because two things. One, they had the professional capability, but two, and more importantly, they committed. What I mean by that is Sir wanted 24/7 regular rostered people there to look after Shri Mataji. You couldn't come for 1 week around Ganesha Puja and go back to your job, or come for a week of Guru Puja and go back. You needed to commit. So there was a regular crew of people who would have shifts on and off, who would be consistent in relation to their vibrations and their presence.
Just one question to put it in the context. What are you talking about is taking care of Shri Mataji not only in Australia,
Everywhere.
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 So that's I want to emphasis. Not was about when Shri Mataji was in Australia, but everywhere. So probably one of the reasons for this animosity was that
We took over.
stupid idea that you took over. And because I stop you now, I promise we will go back because it's very important. No, no, no. But I want to show my outrage about someone who are even thinking of not caring about your mother, or blaming the husband to take care of the wife, of blaming the children of taking care, was no brainer. I mean, what can we do just to sit like that on a base, on a letter write it 20 years ago?
Look, Dan, I was in the middle of all that. And what I'll say is I have no hard feelings or any judgment, because every Sage yogi had a view, whether Shamaji was poisoned or that. So they were all acting out of their love for Shamaji. So there was no, so my feeling is, yes, we may have disagreed about what our roles were, but everyone was acting out of their love for Shamaji. And Sir had the same views, even though he was criticized and, about going against the letter and, intervening with medical care. He knew that it was done from love.
But it's an oxymoron here. I mean, on one hand, why you are caring about Shri Mataji, and on the other hand, you poison it. So, hello, make up your mind. Do we want to poison it or we want to save it? We are doing wrong because we want to save Shri Mataji, or we are poisoning. So that's blow your mind. I mean,
it was very difficult for all of us. Everyone involved. No one, either side of the argument, no one took any pleasure out of the controversies that took place. But as I said earlier, it was 100% Sir's decision, and he's right to make those decisions. It wasn't ours. So we had a choice as yogis. We could decline to help and say, "Well, Sir, leave it to Sir," or we could come in service. So our role as Australians, and perhaps it's because, we're from the land of Sri Ganesha, and we have that feeling that whatever is there for our mother, we do. Now, the view that we took is Shimalaji spoke, and there's public occasions when she spoke. Guru Puja 2008, Navratri Puja 2007. She spoke on occasion. So it wasn't like she was totally in a period of silence and no interaction. So our view was we will offer the service that we were asked to, which was medical, nurses, doctors, intervention. And at any point in that time, if our mother says to us, "I do not want medical treatment, or I don't want to take this medicine, or this is against my will," what do you think we would have done? We would have stopped.
Obviously.
Because that's what we're there for. We aren't serving Sir CP. We're working collaborative with him. Absolutely. But the minute our mother would say, "This is against my wishes," or "I don't want this," what are we going to do? We would stop.
Absolutely.
But it never happened. From 2005 to the end, not once that I'm aware of, that I was heard of, did she say, "Stop treating me medically." And by any measure, the intervention of Sir CP and the doctors and the nurses and the carers helped to extend the time that the Devi was on the earth, her incarnation. So we are all, those people who were in those roles, who did that job, we think back comfortably with the role that we did and the service that we provided. And, as I said, I think I might have mentioned, that in the last talk about 2012, the 2 weeks before when she spoke, and she addressed that issue, and she said, "Thank you for looking after me. Thank you to my husband. Thank you to son Nadiri. Thank you to all of you for the service that you provided." And she could have said, "I'm not happy. You didn't follow the letter. You gave me the drugs I didn't want." And then we would all be pulling our ears and prostrate before her, asking her for her forgiveness. But with the the qualification that we did what we thought was in her best interest. So I'll just say one further thing about that whole period from 2004 onward to the end. If you look at the history of the incarnations and their role interaction with mankind, and Shri Mataji speaks about it on many occasions, humanity never understood the divine, never understood avatars, could never accept their incarnation, and on so many occasions, as we all know, poisoned, crucified, tortured the avatar. So our interaction with the divine from the perspective of humanity has been one where we haven't been able to recognize in the past and to be of service. And when I think back from that time, from 2004 to the end, I think as human beings, as humanity, we changed that pattern where rather than prosecuting, persecuting, or making it difficult, we said, we don't understand the Maya of the divine, and it's not our role to. All we are here to do is to be of service to you, Shri Mataji, for whatever capacity and capability that we can. And the people I would call out, the people that were the core, I came and went as I could. I had my job. But there were people, you can imagine from 2004 to the end, you know, nurses and doctors and people like Hari, who went constantly for 7 years, on and off, week after week, month after month, come back, do some work for a month, go back, go to Genoa, go to Cabela, go to Protestant, go to Los Angeles, go to London, go to New York. Do all of that dedication for that 7 years. And none of us, none of the Australians are asking for any credit, any position, anything from it. All we're saying is don't criticize us for what we did and don't make up things about us. And one of the things they made up about us is, oh yeah, we did it because we worship Sir CP. Untrue. We did it out of bhakti to our mother, and we collaborated with Sir CP as the primary person providing that care. We weren't sitting in the chair next to Shri Mataji. He was. That's his karma. That's his fate. Our job is to help him. But we never worshipped him or anybody. We worshipped our mother only. So that got spread, and it was malicious, and it was done to undermine us. It was a political thing.
Why?
You know, and I don't have any hard feelings towards people who spread those things.
Why do you think was spread that idea? Because I heard about that and I was adamant. How can someone spread this idea that Shri Mataji can be kept alive without her will and to have a benefit? What benefit you have? What
position?
What
benefit is that they thought, you know, we wanted it to be in front of Sir CP and Shri Mataji, that we wanted it to promote ourselves, that we're self-promoters, that there were people that were interested in.
So you keep Shri Mataji alive just to be what?
And Shri Mataji kept herself alive. We just did
exactly.
We just did a little bit of service. You know, we'd bring the stuff, we would just provide an environment as instruments of her care. She kept herself alive, but she needed support. That's the word I use, support. We didn't care for Shri Mataji. She cared for herself. What we did is we provided a little bit of support to support the life of the Devi in this incarnation on the earth. That's all we did. And we did it only from the perspective of that's what our mother wanted, asked for, supported, whatever the word is. Little bit of support that we provided, and that's all we did. And we didn't do it for any reason other than love.
For me, it was no-brainer, but I still wonder after so many years why so many people can believe this kind of atrocities. That's my. I'm not the people who start the rumor, but the I don't know, hundreds, whatever people who believe that.
You only have to look.
Do you have an explanation?
I don't. This is not a time.
I have some explanation, but I want to hear yours.
This is not a time for controversy, and I don't want to criticize anyone. It's
Okay.
between them and Shri Mataji. All I know is that I bow to all those people from 2004 to 2012 who gave up their lives and their time and their effort to go there consistently and to look after Shri Mataji on behalf of all of us and all of creation. I bow to all of them, and they all deserve our unqualified support and respect. All right. And I'll just say, Hari Gaikwad, he was there from 2004 to 12 in Shri Mataji's service. She found his service comforting to her. She never sent him away. If there was all these rumors about him, all these lies spread about him, well, I defer to Shri Mataji.
Tell the name again, please.
Hari Gaikwad.
Okay.
Hari Gaikwad. All this stuff on the internet about him, all these lies spread about him. Well, I say to anybody, all the stuff that you read, well, he was there from 2004 to 12 right through, and Shri Mataji would send people away if they were displeasing her. He, Sandeep and Sanjay were there right through, and Shri Mataji found their presence of comfort to her. That's enough for me, and it should be enough for anybody. So don't believe the lies that are spread about him. They're all untrue. He is an auspicious man of which Shri Mataji took great comfort and care of. That's all I'll say. Please don't listen to the lies. I want to say one other thing, important thing. So in 1990s, Australia was co-hosting Sri Ganesha Puja in Cabela with one big country. The country was Romania. Now, so I was going to Cabela with the Australians and we were co-hosting. And one time I asked Uncle Michael, who was the leader at the time, I said, what's the connection between Australia and Romania? We're on opposite sides of the world. I thought maybe we co-host, with other Asian countries or India. What's the connection to Romania? And he just said, Shri Mataji decided it. I don't know the reason, but there must be a reason. So I said, fine, whatever the reason. So we were working year after year, going to Cabela with the Romanians, getting to know them, working with them, and appreciating their many qualities. And then from that period from 2005 onwards, one day I was at Genoa House and I looked around. I said, hey, they're all Romanians here. Gardeners, cooks, the people doing the laundry, people caring for the house. It was mainly Australians and Romanians. And then I thought, that's why Shri Mataji put us together in the 90s, because she knew later on we'd be working side by side together, and she was getting us used to one another, appreciating one another. And the Romanians I found around Shri Mataji, it can be a bit of a circus. Some people say, what's it like around Shri Mataji? There's all this. It can be at times a bit of a circle with people lobbying and jockeying to get in front of Shri Mataji and making excuses to get in front. All this stuff going on. People playing games, pulling up and down and pushing, promoting. But what I noticed with the Romanians, they were very Ganesha-like, very humble, very selfless. They just came, they did their job, they had no expectations, they didn't want to get promoted, they didn't have ulterior motives. They just came to serve. And they were so instrumental in those years in providing the foundation basis for everything that happened in Genoa and around the world. And I say to the Romanians, you played a great role of service to Shri Mataji. And again, I bow to that because it was really instrumental and important. And everything Shri Mataji did about putting us together as co-hosts in the 90s, I could see later on, it all came to fruition when we all worked together again, side by side, as brothers and sisters. So,
you
Shri Mataji.
You will make the day for the Romanian, because now I contemplating to put our discussion on the Romanian channel as well, because it's very important for them as well.
They did a great service. The country should be very proud of all the people. I could name 20 people from Romania who came. I know them all by first name. They're all dear to me, and they all had that selfless. And they're hard workers. That's the other thing about you guys. Hard workers. They could really do a load of work, never complain, do the job that was needed, and then just go, and that'd be the end of the day. And they never asked for recognition or rewards, or they were just fantastic people to be around. And they bring all those people that came, then we would say, are there more like you? And they bring more people from Romania that come, and they were the ones mainly looking after Sir, because you're towards. And the good thing was, one of the really important things was Shri Mataji. Some people say, we looked after Sir the same we looked after Shri Mataji. Shri Mataji was our guru. Why were we looking after Sir? Very important reason. Very important reason. I was with Shri Mataji one time, and she leaned across and she said, "Chris, I'm very happy. Please look after my husband the same as you're looking after me." All right. So when all the people started criticizing us about worshipping Sir and looking after him, I told them, this is what Shri Mataji told me. What do you want me to do? My mother's given me a clear instruction. Yeah. If you're not happy with it, I'm sorry. I'm doing what Shri Mataji asked me to do. And that means when Shri Mataji passed and Sir was still here, we didn't go, hey, we're out of here now. We've done our job, Sir, you're on your own. We continued, as Shri Mataji said, to give the same level of support and care to Sir as we gave to Shri Mataji, as she asked us to do. And to your credit, the Romanian boys stuck firm and true. They didn't run off and say, well, Shri Mataji's gone. They stayed. And they were with Sir, right to the end, looking after him and the household. And people say to me, well, Sir's not a yogi. He's just a husband. He doesn't recognize Shri Mataji. Well, that's not been my experience. So one time, towards the end, when Sir was coming to the end, and we were called from Australia, said, Sir's not well, please come and say goodbye. So we all went, and Sir was in hospital in Genoa, and he was, he was unconscious, and we spent a couple of days by his bedside, praying for him and saying things. And the doctor at the time was a very dear friend, because he'd been doctor for Shri Mataji. He became doctor for Sir CP, and he said, the time has come, all the vital signs all going down, down, down. And he said he's about to leave us. And one of the yogis, I think it was Hari, even said, Doctor, his fate is in Shri Mataji's hands. I said, when his time has come, she will decide, not us. And he said, yeah, but I'm a doctor. I've seen when someone his age and all the vital signs are going down, he said, it's the end. And he said, maybe. And then a couple of hours later, the doctor came in and his eyes opened up. He looked up and all the lines that were going down started going up. So all the vital signs started getting, and he looked and he said, I can't believe it. He said, no one of his age in that decline ever comes back. And a couple of hours later, he opened his eyes and he looked around and saw us. And he said, oh, I'm still here. He said, I thought I was going up to be with her. I said, I can almost see her in heaven. And all of a sudden I feel myself pull back. And we said, well, sir, maybe Shri Mataji's got some more plans for you. So he stayed, he lived longer, and then we again come back forward from Australia, Genoa. So I came for a time and I was with him. We just stayed in the room with him and talked to him, and he would tell us incredible stories about his life. So his story was so one day he told me his whole story. So he was a young boy, maybe 7 or 8, and he had a tragedy in his family, and he lost his parents. And in India, there's no social security, there's no much in the way of support. So what they did is he had an uncle on the other side of the country who they didn't know whether the uncle would accept him. So they pinned on his shirt an address where the uncle was, and enough money on the train to get from where he was to the place where the uncle was. So he was this, little boy traveling on a train by himself across India with a little address pinned on, which when he got off the train station, had a little bit of money and was able to get to the address, and turned up at his uncle's house as a destitute orphan, and fell upon the mercy of his relative that he would take him in and look after him. And the story was the uncle said, yes, I will fulfill my family obligations and I will look after you. And then Sir said from a young age, he felt that, he'd been saved for a reason. So he really took to taking the second chance of life. He started studying, working, proving himself. doing very well at school so he could progress through life and he could be independent and, he could be someone of great stature. But he said to me that, he was an orphan and he even though he went to another family, he didn't have a lot of love in his life. He was just, in a way, an obligation, a family obligation. So he said when he met Shri Mataji and they came together, he said the love that he got from Shri Mataji was the love of a wife, of a mother, of a sister, of everything that he missed in life growing up. All of a sudden, through the union with Shri Mataji, he had all that love pouring in unlimited form. So he said to me, I had my whole life in that love. So when Shri Mataji came to that time when she needed my help, what do you think I would do? Is I would repay that debt of love with as much love and care that I could show to her. And sitting in that room in Genoa and him sharing these stories, it's not Shri Mataji, of course, but you're feeling, what sort of soul he is. He's a person of incredible depth and stature. And, I totally reject all the things that are said about him on the internet. It's just totally not the person that I know and experience. And one last story. So another day I was sitting in the room and he was sleeping. And I looked around the room and there were always photos of Shri Mataji everywhere. Every wall had a photo. On the mantelpiece there was a photo. Everywhere there was photos. And he woke up and he saw me looking around the room. And he said, "Oh, Chris," he said, "you appreciate the way I've decorated the room?" And I said, "Yes, sir. Very pleasing to me. Everywhere Shri Mataji." So he said, "You're a very astute young man." He said, how many images of Shri Mataji are there in this room?" And me being very smart, thinking I was smart, I said, "Sir, I counted," because I was sitting here. I actually got up and walked around the room. I counted. He said, "There are 24. He said, "Chris, I thought you were a smart man." I said, "Sir," I got up again, walked around the room, counted everything. I said, "Sir, there's 24 photos, images of Shri Mataji in his room." He goes, "No, there's not." He says, 25. I said, "Where's the 25th one?" He put his hand on his heart. He said, "That's the other one. She's always there with me." And I was like stunned. I said, I just felt privileged to have known him. And by knowing him, he inspires all of us who knew him to try and be a better person, a more dignified person, a person that does the most they can in their life, and to be someone who can be of aid to the world. So that's what we learned from him. And I think back of those times and I think about how he cared for and loved his wife. So to me, I took that in my own life. And when my mother approached that time in her life, I said, well, I've seen the way that the dutiful son or husband looks after their loved one. And I try to do the same for my mother, learning from his experience and Sanaji's experience, the way she looked after her mother, selflessly, 24/7, no stone unturned in their care. And that's one of the great examples that I learned from Sanaji and from CCP.
Wow. To say just thank you for all these beautiful stories will be not enough. My only question before I go for the closing our discussion will be not if you have more stories, but if you want to share more stories. This is still recording, so be careful what you decided.
We can do this again. Let's post it up. Let's see what people think, and if people want it, they have to ask for it. So I don't want to impose on people. If people find a value, then happy to.
No, it's not about the today people, because although we have a so-called public, an audience who are watching us, which are not very big. But with all the respect I have to them, I have to tell that this is for the future. So everything you said, it's a recording. It's a memory for the next generations. So I'm very glad that without knowing Sir CP, I meet him only once. I was happy to travel with him in the same car, and he had memories about a city in Romania where he was there as a maritime representative. Without knowing him, I have exactly the same feeling like you, and we never ever have any doubt about his role without us worshiping him. So those are two extremes. But again, the main story in our conversation is and should be Shri Mataji, but Sir CP come into discussion just because someone wants something else. We are not going there. I make some notes and I have a lot of questions, but obviously it's not the moment now. If you agree to meet again, I will start from the question I have it. For the moment, I want to thank you on behalf of the future Sahaja Yogi who will watch and have this recollection of yours. And obviously, the people of today make up their mind. I'm not afraid to host this kind of recollection. I'm not afraid to tell my opinion about these controversial issues. We will definitely meet again, but before that, I want to thank you again.
Thank
And
you. Thank you, Daniel.
thank
I
you.
mean, the reason I do this, I want to be very clear. I'm not doing this because I have any interest in promoting myself or I want any position or any status or any of those things. I'm not interested in that. I think one of the things, having been in Sahaja Yoga for a long time, is to learn about the fallacy of all those things. I'm doing this for one reason only, is that there's many things spread on the internet that are less positive, that are not supporting the vision of humanity for an enlightened spiritual world. So all that I'm trying to do here is just to put some positivity, some love of humanity, and to share that, so there are places on the internet where people can access things that are not controversial or are not argumentative or are not divisive or trying to pull somebody down. But there are things that people can read that can access that hopefully is reflecting the love of Shri Mataji. And as I said to you once, she gave us this love so we could share it. But we don't keep it to ourselves, that it can be spread and can help other people. So it's not just for us, it's for those who are open to it. And for that reason is why I do this. That's all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And to my knowledge, you never talk about that on any recording on that extent.
Not so
So
much. Not so much.
not so much. And I thank you again for choosing
All right.
me as a partner in crime.
Shri Mataji, everyone. And we'll do this again, Daniel. Maybe you can draw some questions up, and next time I'll do a Q&A session.
Yes, Jai Shri Mataji, and
Jai Shri Mataji.
stay a little bit after we close the recording. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see each other soon, hopefully. Jai Shri Mataji.
Jai Shri Mataji. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Daniel. Very nice.